All right. Thank you guys for joining us today for this, not so great episode of the Siren. We definitely don't want to be having to have this conversation. My name is Sam Schwartz from the Siren. I'm joined by Joe Carducci, Rachel Vindman, and Joel Rubin. Before we get into it, I just want to start by saying, I've seen a lot of people from both sides of the political spectrum sort of pointing the finger at one another and accusing each other of this is caused by you. And I just want to say that anybody who's doing that right now, I think is part of the problem. I think more than anything right now, we need to be talking about unity. We need to bring the country together. And I hope that this, if anything, there can be some good that comes out of this in a positive direction, that we can sort of come back together, because obviously this is untenable. We cannot continue in this direction. Obviously, political violence is completely unacceptable in all of its forms. This is a horrific, horrible act. And so I just want to start off by saying that that's our approach, and that's sort of the angle that we're coming at this from.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Thanks, Joel and Rachel. I think this is an important conversation to have. I would be remiss if I did not point out that I would not know you, Sam, someone who I talk to many, many times every single day. If a tragedy, I don't even tragedy is the right word to use, because like these terms that we throw around as if, they weren't preventable, but you lost your cousin, your best friend, Alex, in Parkland. He was murdered in Parkland. And that is why I know who you are. That is why I am your friend. And knowing that, and witnessing what we witnessed yesterday, and by the way, there was a school shooting and unfolding at the same time, it breaks my heart. And it also infuriates me, because we've come so far, and yet here we are, right? Being pulled back, pushed back into this place where this is a reality that we have to accept. And I don't want to accept it. I refuse to accept it. And that's just, as a mom, as a human being, like, whether or not you like Charlie Kirk, which I didn't, whether or not you agreed with Charlie Kirk, which I never did, that was a human being who was taken from his family. And I'm having a really hard time with some of the responses that are coming from both sides.
Oh, same.
From Mars. Yeah. From Mars, too.
I think mostly from ours, to be honest. Sorry to interrupt you, Sam, but yesterday I was speechless for a while trying to process it. Then I posted, I was heartbroken. I put it on Threads. It was up for 8 minutes. The responses from the left were so horrible that I deleted my post. And because I didn't want on something that I said to see people say things so ugly. And then I deleted the apps from my phone. I didn't delete my accounts, but I deleted the apps from my phone, and that's it. I didn't look at social media for the rest of the evening, because I cannot handle that kind of ugliness. And maybe, but at some point we're going to have to acknowledge this, maybe next week, maybe, later, we're going to have to talk about this further. But I will say, I'm not too proud to say that what I saw was absolutely disgusting, and it was from our side. And that's a lot.
Yeah, the not to interrupt you, Joel, but there has been a lot of finger pointing on both sides. I've seen it from leftists, like far left activists. I've seen it from people on the right. Currently, Twitter right now is full predominantly of prominent MAGA accounts calling for a civil war. Libs of TikTok is saying that we are at war. Someone, I think Steve Bannon, said that Charlie Kirk is a casualty of war. And I think that sort of talk has led us to this moment, and it's completely counterintuitive to what we need to be doing right now. Like, this is a horrible, horrible instance. I think we're forgetting that his wife and children watched as he was killed. And so did all of the 2,000 to 3,000 students who watched someone be assassinated in front of them. And it really reminded me of, like, this is every day, right? This is an insane occurrence. It's not every day that we see a prominent political figure be assassinated, but this is gun violence, right? And so this stuff happens every day. Yesterday, Charlie Kirk was one of the 120 people who die every day due to gun violence. And it reminded me of Parkland, which, as Joe was saying, I lost my cousin in that shooting. all of those students who watched him and the 16 other people be shot and killed, and the 17 other people who were shot and thankfully survived, all of those people have trauma for life, right? And so I think that's sort of what we're forgetting here. I think more than anything right now, we should be trying to come together as a country and not point fingers and not say that we're in a civil war. I think that stuff is just totally going to lead us even into a deeper, darker place right now.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I agree with that, and I'm trying to think of a few different ways that this affected me yesterday, as well as the repercussions for our society. And I watched an interview of Speaker Mike Johnson, who actually echoed what you just said, Sam. And when there was a bit of a kerfuffle on the floor in the House, he basically didn't attack anybody for it. In an interview, he was very calm. I think it was CNN, and he did a good job of trying to use unifying language. And I got to tell you, with Charlie Kirk, watching him engage, I would watch his social media posts of these debates, and I always thought, wow, that guy has guts to go out there in full public view and debate in the hardest issues with people on campus. And that's, to me, the human tragedy and the tragedy you're describing. All of these are tragedies, but also a major, I'll call it the biggest tragedy, is what I was going to say, is that this now means that we can't even have civil dialogue and debate over ideas when we're clashing in the intellectual, kind of like turmoil of the moment, and then walk away from each other alive. Is that where we are right now? And I'll make it personal for all of us here as people who are on TV or in the social media and doing blogs and doing podcasts. I was interacting last night with someone who's on the other side of the aisle on this. And you know what he said to me? He said, "Am I next?" This should never be the way we think. We should not think about worrying about whether we're going to get shot because we're going to have opinions. That's antithetical to America. And so, to your point, Sam, I'll just finish up with this. For people who seem to be reveling in the moment by spewing more hate on the left and on the right, all of those people need to shut up and be human beings and think about what would their children say. I know. I'll just elongate one more. I know what one of my kids said, a high school child. She said that she had empathy for him and his family, and she saw other people not exuding empathy. I was so proud of her because it means that she is a good human being, right? And that's what we should all aspire to while we continue to get into the hard, rough and tumble of political debate. We have too many things at stake in this country, and watching that yesterday was so depressing and sad on so many levels. And I really, really hope that we don't end up losing our ability to even have public discourse over the future of the country.
I think that's so right, and I think it's interesting to me because I love all of you, and you're all very dear to me. And for the reason that you are who you are, your hearts are pure. You're deeply emotional, empathetic, compassionate people, and your responses to this have been different from a lot of the responses that I've gotten from people like on our side, as we've discussed, where they're incapable of having that humanity in this moment. It's a binary for a lot of people. It's either celebrating fuck him and fuck that, he got what he deserved, he was out there saying awful things, he said there was a percentage of gun deaths that should happen because that was freedom, or like the opposite, where he's lionized and turned into a martyr. And it's not a binary choice. That's the problem. Like, we have to find that space in between where humanity is supposed to exist, where we understand that this was a human being, that, like, whether or not, again, you agreed with him politically, whether or not he said awful things, he did. But, like, what hit me and what is so hard for me in reading these replies on social media, and I have found that it is worse on Instagram and Blue Sky and Threads than anywhere, honestly, anywhere, where I posted all I can think about are his children right now. And what I got was
Yep.
they're better off. And like,
God.
I keep bumping up against this idea that, like, I didn't have to like him personally, but like, where is our humanity? How can you not? How can you watch that? And we've all seen it. Sam, I know you haven't. I will never. You should not. And to anybody who has not, do not. I implore you, do not. But for anyone who has seen that, that again, it's a human being. And I think what all of you are doing in this moment is finding that place in your hearts where there's room to understand that. And I think part of the problem in this country right now, part of how we got here, right? There is all the finger pointing, but it's that you have to pick. You're either way over here or you're way over there, and that's it. And conversations like these, to me, that's how we meet the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I would also be remiss if we didn't mention that at the same time that the world was finding out that Charlie Kirk had been assassinated, there also was another school shooting happening, right? And there's probably other ones that happened that we didn't hear about, because that is a uniquely American experience to have a political assassination hit the news and also the news of a school shooting and have them be competing for media time, right? That's a level of sickening and like gut-wrenching existence that it's really hard for me to come to grips with. And I think it demands us mentioning that, like, this level of gun violence is caused by our inability as a country to address this properly, right? Like, I feel like for years since Parkland, at least in my experience, I've been saying the bullets don't discriminate, gun violence doesn't discriminate. And this is an example of that, right? This is an example of specific people on the right saying, wearing AR-15s on their lapels in Congress, right? Like, this is the result of that. There isn't a line that says, oh, well, you defended the Second Amendment, therefore you won't be the victim of a mass shooting. That doesn't exist.
No.
And so I think this is it should be another wake-up call for Americans to hopefully say that we need more reasonable gun safety laws in this country, because what's happening right now, like enabling people to own weapons of war and do whatever they want with them, means that we are all at risk, and it means that 120 people die a day due to guns. It means that there's, annually around 40,000 people a year who die, right, due to guns, and that's not a country that I want to live in, right? Like, I don't want to one day have kids and send them off to school and have to memorize what they're wearing when they walk into school, right? I don't want that existence. And this is a very graphic topic, and I apologize for that, but that's what it is right now. Like, I think we would be.
This is our reality.
This is a reality.
I mean,
that's exactly right. Yeah.
I have not seen the video. I literally, just
Don't
before we
watch it.
started, I texted my daughter reminding her, do not watch the video. She has very limited time on social media. So she was scrolling through this morning as we were driving to school, because her time starts over every day. And I don't know what it says about my parenting, but she then consumes it and, like, on the way to school, and she has no time left for the rest of the day. So I maybe need to work on time management and budgeting. But in any event, she did not see anything. And then she texted me from school saying, like, everyone's talking about it. It's more political than it even was. The only time I've seen our school this political was after the election. And so it's definitely top of mind. As always, I said a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. She agreed with me. Actually, I think maybe she said it first. But, I tried to brief her on this going to school and discussing this. I mean, it's a very delicate thing. And I showed her what Governor Newsom said, if I can just read it. He said, the best way to honor Charlie's memory is to continue his work, engage with each other across ideology, through spirited discourse. In a democracy, ideas are tested through words and good faith debate, never through violence. We don't accomplish anything through violence. It is. I mean, and see, this is what I was proud, I guess, to show my daughter this and say, this is when we elect people, we elect leaders. They are leaders. And unfortunately, we do not currently have a leader in the White House, and we are suffering because of it. Because there was a time when there could be someone in the White House, and even if we didn't agree on everything, they would rise to the moment and be that person who unified us. This is September 11th. We had that with George Bush. I mean, he at least addressed us. He was like, I understand. We're going to fight back. Like, I mean, all those things that you would expect a president to say. We don't have someone who's capable of that. And when before we got on, Sam and Joel and I were discussing, it's a little too soon. And I understand people want to talk about, again, they want to talk about the shooting in Colorado. They want to talk about what was your response to Minnesota, all these things. And okay, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I personally think that we can just let people mourn Charlie Kirk right now. I mean, it doesn't have to be like an either or. I mean, it's not a zero-sum game on some of this stuff, so we can just go for it. But the thing is, we start having this weirdness, this like all this stuff when we aren't seeing modeled for us what's normal. And that's why I think we have people like Sam, who's a youth activist. Why? Not only because he was affected, that's part of it, but also who else is doing it? No one else is standing up and saying, because they don't want to use their political capital on something that they know is like so many people are just going to yell at them about. I mean, do you guys think that's true? Like, I think that's why we don't have a lot of leaders who talk about gun violence on the regular. They're afraid.
Can I interject on that? Because I think that's really brilliant. And I think at a certain point, yes, we have the leaders, the political leaders, but in many ways the leaders are us, right? Yeah. Like we are the ones that must shape the way our country is working and our society is working, and not have a lot of expectations for our electeds. Mm-hmm. We want our electeds to be the best, but if they're not, that still doesn't give us an excuse to not be.
Certainly, yeah, that's a good point.
But look, I got to tell you, on September 11th, 24 years ago, I remember it. Joe, I'm sure you remember it too. Sam, probably not, but.
Was not alive, unfortunately.
Oh, man. There was that moment when President Bush and Tom Daschle gave a big bear hug on the Senate floor, and that was genuine. And I know deep down there, a lot of Americans really long for that moment of empathy and understanding, and still, debate and vigorous discourse and whatnot. But I wanted to add one thing before I forget, because I'm over 50. I forget things a lot. But I had a feeling physically that reminded me actually of October 7th and the attacks in Israel. And I'll explain why. There was a moment of fear and panic, and it's sort of like, oh my God, the rails are falling off. Like, what's going on here? And then I remember, I didn't get too many calls from pretty much anybody who was on the, quote, other side of the issue, people who I had known and worked with for years, who I had debated. Nobody called with any empathy. There wasn't much. In fact, I got the opposite. I got a lot of attacks because I, at that moment, expressed horror at what was going on inside Israel, and I did that publicly, and I got attacked for it. And so I reminded myself of that. And I did reach out to some conservative contacts and friends and just let them know, I'm sorry that you're experiencing it. I know what this guy meant to you all, and I want you to know that I see you as a person. And I really don't think that takes away from my ability to have hard political opinions and debate, because I'm not going to stop doing that. But I think it gives more power to our debate, right? So I think Gavin Newsom is more powerful now because of his humanity with that statement. That when he says things, people from the other side of the issue will look at him as a good quality human being, and maybe they'll actually listen to him, right? And I want us to really think about that as we're engaging. Like, talk to the people who are personally really upset and distraught by this because he was someone they really admired, and show some human sympathy and empathy, and realize that's not going to weaken your ability to still have hard, strong political viewpoints.
And to that point, and to Rachel's point about how we don't have someone at the helm right now. Not only we don't have someone at the helm right now who's not capable of that, right? It's the opposite. This is someone who has perpetually poked, prodded, primed, stoked, poured gasoline on the fire, the fires that he lit, right? We know that about Donald Trump. And a lot of how we've ended up here does lay at his feet. So in so much as we do need to look at our elected officials, at the same time, we don't have someone at the helm, at the federal helm, that is going to model the kinds of responses that Newsom did, the kinds of responses that we are looking for, the kinds of responses that are going to open the dialogue, the channels of dialogue between ourselves and people who are not politically maybe aligned with us, right? So it does have to come down to us, and then that's very important. But it would also be remiss if we said that we have to stop calling that out, right? This is the other part of this, where they do want to gaslight. And when Newsom posted that, just like any one of us posted anything, a lot of the replies were, this is you, this is blood on your hands, you did this, etc., right? So like, it's good that he's doing that, but it is incumbent upon us to find that place in ourselves, because Donald Trump's certainly not going to do it. And by the way, to Mike Johnson, I agree that what he said was the right thing to say, but Mike Johnson also said not so long ago that Gavin Newsom should be tarred and feathered. So like, we just, the vitriolic rhetoric needs to be toned down, period, right? I mean, we saw what happened on the House floor, where Luna said that this is your fault because the Democrats didn't want to partake, some of them, in a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk, etc. But yeah, it is very much incumbent upon us to call this out, but to model the kinds of behavior that Gavin Newsom's comments and Gavin Newsom's statements that they put forth. And I'll just say this last thing. Yesterday, I was recording a podcast with Senator Padilla in real time as the news of Charlie Kirk's passing came in, and he told me, I didn't know. He got it handed to him from a staffer, and then I wanted to close our conversation, because the shooting had happened, with some thoughts about, what had happened, and he told me, and my instantaneous response was to cry. It was to cry. Not because I
that's why we love you, Joe.
Well, and Senator Padilla was also very emotional. But the thing is like, because none of us wants this world for ourselves, for our loved ones, for each other, for our children, for anybody that was there that day, for anybody who loves Charlie Kirk, for anybody who's telling me that I should die now. I don't want this world for them either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was
I don't want anyone to have death threats. It sucks. Right. We get death threats all the time. I know Joe gets death threats. I mean, I am so tired of death threats and having the conversation and like having to.
I've gotten
so
death
tired
threats
of
for
it.
saying that we should have less gun violence. Can you believe that? Like, me saying that mass shootings should not happen anymore has resulted in me having death threats.
I said I disavowed this violence, and I was told, this was it, your words caused this, you need to die. Like, make sense of that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying I don't want this violence, and then you're saying, you used your words to incite this violence, now you should die. They're saying that the very thing they're accusing me of doing, they're doing to me.
Well, I'll just say before we have to end that, to Joel's point, showing sympathy and condolences for what happened yesterday, that doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything that Charlie Kirk said. I think that's something that people are not grasping. Charlie Kirk said some really awful, reprehensible things. He says a lot of things that I completely disagree with, and I could still show empathy and respect and give my condolences to his family and his friends and people that admired him. If we don't do that, we've lost the country. We've lost everything. Okay? Like, it's not an acceptable way to move forward. We will end up in a very, very dark place. And to that point, I think that our current leaders in the White House right now, they're not meeting the moment. When this happened, I said, maybe Donald Trump will come out and show some unification here, and he'll say this is unacceptable. Maybe he'll try to bring the country together, as every president in my lifetime 100% would have done, even the ones that I do not agree with. But instead, the president of the United States took to the airwaves last night to essentially call for the purging of the opposition party, right? He said that we're going to go after left-wing organizations. He said we're going to go after essentially Democrats. Nancy Mace, right after the news broke, said that, what did she say? That Democrats own this?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
completely insane. We have no motive. We have no shooter. There's no suspect. There's nothing has been found.
They don't know anything about this person. And this is, instead of trying to de-escalate, it is only amping it up and using it as an excuse. And I mean, we'll see what happens with that, but it is very dangerous.
I think that's a very important message to continue to point out. This is not a whataboutism. This is how you're responding to this. And remember, a year or so ago, there was the assassination attempt on Trump, and he actually did come out afterwards and say unity, unity. You know, there was he's done this before. He should step back. The emotion of the day is extraordinary. I can't even begin to imagine how upset they were, because they personally knew the guy intimately, right? Like, this was not just some passing figure.
He was like a
And
genuine
maybe a day later, cooler heads will start to prevail and they can reset the tone. But that needs to happen, without a doubt.
And don't
Yeah,
forget,
so-
like, to your point, Joel, before we go, don't forget, like, I posted this, compare and contrast Joe Biden's response as then president to what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. He literally used the words, turn down the temperature. He used those words. He did meet that moment just the way Rachel said. You know, he did meet the moment to the extent that he was trying to diffuse this bomb. He was trying to calm the waters and to say the political violence, any kind of violence, should not be condoned in any way, and that we need to tone back the language. He did that, and he and Donald Trump had been battling for how long, right? Like, Donald Trump has been less courteous by far about everything related to Joe Biden, including his cancer diagnosis, which came much later, but still, Joe Biden did do that. He did model that behavior in that moment, and we need to sort of embrace and encourage and appreciate, as we've all done, the leaders who are meeting that moment right now, which many Democrats have. Gavin Newsom, for sure, absolutely has.
Well, with that, I'll just leave you with this one thing. Anyone who you see on social media, remember, social media is not real life, first of all, but anybody who you see on the news or on social media or even in real life, using this moment to call for more violence, do not listen to that person. You should not trust that person, and you should only listen to the people who are calling for unity right now and respect. So with that, we will continue to update you and monitor this situation as it develops. Subscribe and follow the Siren for more updates. And thank you all for joining us today, and we hope that you're well. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.